Looking at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Cadillac CT5. This is the 2025 Plus version. If I have a chance to get into one of the previous gens, you'll find that down below, along with a walkthrough on the infotainment system. So first thing I'm going to point out, steering wheel is getting toasty. Heated steering wheel available there as an option. And then you've also got a power telescoping steering wheel. So down by your left knee, there's a release to go, in, out, up, and down. Once you find that perfect position, what I'd also recommend is set up your driver's seat the way that you'd like to, along with your side view mirrors. Once those are all set up, along the door, you're then going to tap set, and then either 1 or 2 for it to remember your own personal profile. Let's go through all the different buttons in the stocks. Starting off along the left-hand side, going to be for your blinkers. You can flash your high beams out, no problem, but you can't permanently lock your high beams out when you're in the auto headlamp mode. So what you want to do there is go into the headlamp mode. You're going to push away to turn them on, either push away or pull towards you to turn them off. So it's that, like I said, in the auto mode, you could hit the button on the tip of the left stick to go into an auto high beam mode. And what that means is that if the vehicle recognizes high beams are needed, turns them on automatically. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to turn them off before turning them right back on again. Stick along the right-hand side is going to be for your wipers. And then if you go into a 1-up mode, you could then use the little rocker in the middle in order to be able to adjust out the wiper speed for that intermittent level. Then you've got all of your fast, crazy modes. You can then pull in towards you to get that wiper fluid going. Straightforward. The car has paddle shifters. So you've got your minus on the left-hand side, plus on the right-hand side. So you could drop down gears if you wanted to shoot up your RPM counter in order for you to be able to get in front of people faster. So it essentially speeds you up. You can also hit the minus button in order to be able to rely on engine braking. So if you don't use that in order to speed yourself up, what's going to happen is it's going to start slowing you down. I know it's kind of weird the way that it works, but if you want an actual walkthrough on paddle shifters and see a live demonstration of how they work, check down in the description of this video for that little walkthrough. But other buttons that are available along the left-hand side are going to be for cruise control. So you can toggle cruise control on by pushing the button along the outside there. And then once you get to the speed that you'd like, you're going to push down. You could then lightly push up or lightly push down to increase 1 kilometer, 1 mile per hour at a time, or a heavier push up or down, or push and hold to bring you to the next 5 or 0. So let's say if you set it at 37 initially, push and hold up, it'll bring you to 40, 45, 50, etc. Push and hold down to do the opposite. You can hit the brake to cancel your speed. You can hit the cancel button there to cancel your speed, and then you push up to resume your previously set speed. There's also a little distance indicator. So when you're using adaptive cruise or super cruise, you'd have the flexibility of saying how close or far you are away from the vehicle in front of you. I personally find level 1 is okay for me on highways and residential streets. You might want to be on level 1 residential, level 3 on highways or interstates. It comes down to a matter of preference. But if you actually want to see the system used in person, check down in the description of this video for a walkthrough. But there are 3 different types. So in order to go to your traditional cruise, so what you're going to do with the cruise control system on, off, etc., the cancel button, if you push and hold that button, that's going to switch you into regular cruise control. Push and hold again will turn you back into the adaptive cruise, and there are different things that show you whether it's traditional or adaptive. So you lose a lot of the safety settings, the gap adjustment, things like that. And then there's also a steering wheel on the steering wheel, so a little button there, and that's going to be for Super Cruise, which is the full hands-free driving system. That is strictly on highways or interstates, and you know that it's available, or it's available because when you push that, it'll say that it's available, but then you're going to get this little bar along the top of the steering wheel that goes green, and that means it's full hands-free driving. You can even have it set up inside of the infotainment system that as you go to change lanes, like the vehicle can change lanes automatically. You can have it so you hit the turn stalk, it'll look beside you, and then it can change lanes for you. Or if you've got Super Cruise enabled and it's realized that you're going too slow for the lane that you're in, it'll put on the turn stalk automatically, and then it'll change lanes for you automatically too. It's really neat the way that that works, but like I said, full walkthrough down in the description. There's also heated steering wheel that you saw there. Voice command prompt is available here. So you'd be able to do things like change radio stations, you can navigate using your voice, you can adjust some basics for your climate, things like that, all using your voice. If you take that same button and you do a long push and hold, that is going to activate either your Siri or your Google Assistant if you're hooked up over either Android or iPhones. Straightforward. You could answer a phone call this way, and then you've got a series of other buttons all on the right side of the steering wheel. You could change between all of your available presets if they were set up. You could also move between your presets this way if you'd like to. You could answer a phone call this way. You've also got all the options for your audio sources. So we'll get into that one as we move inside. And then you've also got your volume rocker there. So you can easily adjust your volume this way. And then there's also a little dial down the middle underneath the shifter. Then inside of the cluster screen, the outer part of the screen here, this can be customized when you're in this gauge view. So you've got your overview, tires and brakes and things like that. So all of your basic vehicle information. As you move through though, you can either remove different things from the display, you can reset, or if you wanted something different, it's like I was showing you there, if you want your coolant engine temperature there, you've got that flexibility. I'm personally a bigger fan of just keeping the fuel economy inside of that left part, but that one's going to come down to a matter of personal preference. Along the right side of the screen, that's where you get into different options. So your radio stations, all of your different sources. So if you wanted to move between AM, FM, Sirius XM, etc., you've got an OK button in the middle. So if you ever get any messages on that part of the screen, just tap that little rocker wheel in the middle, and that's going to get rid of any messages that you have. Inside of the gauge display that we're in right now, you've got your tachometer along the left-hand side. You've got your digital speedometer. Whether or not you've got different things enabled like cruise control, things like that. If you've got the adaptive or the super cruise system enabled, that's also going to keep you perfectly balanced, but you'll have these things that'll go green with your lane keeping system on off. So pushing a button down the middle in order to toggle that on or off as well. You can also see your current fuel gauge done a few different ways. So you've got your fuel gauge along the bottom, kilometers or miles till empty, and same idea along the top part of the screen this way. You've got your current direction that you're facing, along with your current odometer along the bottom, what gear you're currently in, so park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then with people in the vehicle, do they have their seatbelt plugged in, yay or nay? And one neat thing is that you've got the option of moving between all of these different screens, and then along the bottom, you've got a few other options here. So you could move into your trip counters or some different options for your head-up display. So this one here gives you the flexibility of changing out the actual display, the layout, I should say, of the cluster, or you can move between your trip 1 versus trip 2 counter. In order to reset any of these counters, there's like a fine way that you've got to touch this, hold the reset option here. Got to touch it in the right space. There we go. In order to be able to zero yourself out again. And then all of your options for your head-up display, where you'll be able to adjust the rotation, so the way that it sits. So if you tend to sit one way or the other, you can adjust the height or you can adjust the brightness. I always recommend just keeping yourself on maximum brightness inside of that display. Inside of your vehicle settings, if you go into System and then Units, that's where you're going to switch between either US or metric. So if you prefer one or the other, you can easily adjust it. That's one of the benefits of having a fully digital cluster, is that it just changes everything out for you on the fly. I know that is a lot of information, but that's everything that you need to know about the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Cadillac CT5.